Breaking news, this is your World War III update. It appears as though we now have a rational explanation for the drone phenomena that is captivating the population. I hope you're sitting down because this is alarming, albeit not as sensational as some of the claims being promulgated by media organizations who appear to be, at least inadvertently, trying to somehow relate this to the UFO extraterrestrial phenomena. That, of course, is a smokescreen, okay? That is a diversion. The goal is to imbue this disinformation into the space so that it discredits valid explanations, parsimonious ones like the one I'm about to tell you today. It has nothing to do with aliens. It has nothing to do with Project Blue Beam, UFO disclosures, the government getting ready to stage some false flag alien invasion. I understand we all need a break from reality, and I'm one of the people who want to believe also. Okay, I'm Mulder as much as the next guy, all right? But you have to be realistic. And I'm going to explain to you what this is, and I'm going to explain why this is an unpopular opinion, and it's one they don't want gaining traction. Because what I'm about to tell you, if the public actually knew, it would trigger widespread panic. And it is also not Iranian submersibles off the East Coast lobbing these drones into U.S. airspace. It could, and the explanation I provided you yesterday, which I believe is the most parsimonious one, albeit does not check all the boxes, as I'm going to explain today. The simplest explanation here is that indeed there are spies within the United States and they operate drones. They are nationals from China, Russia, Iran, North Korea possibly, who are here and they are spying on U.S. critical infrastructure, military bases, sensitive nuclear sites, etc. That is happening. That has happened. People have been arrested. In fact, somebody was arrested in the last week. A Chinese national was arrested for spying on the space base. What is it called? Space Force base. Now, that doesn't explain some of the sightings and the size of these drones, okay? That doesn't explain why these drones are so large and why these drones have beacons on them, why they have their lights on, why on earth would, aliens or spies for that matter, comply with FAA regulations. It's just not going to happen. So there is another explanation as to what is going on here. And I think this one is something that very likely could be the case. Now, with that, the latter, the spy hypothesis, the reason why the government is trying to promulgate these theories and the reason why you're seeing these fake videos that are obviously fake being amplified so that they can later be debunked and discredited, well, the purpose of that is to act as a smokescreen. It's to saturate the space, to convolute it, and to make it so that, nobody knows what the hell is going on, and it's just a big imbroglio. They want to inject as much disinformation into the space to take attention away from the fact that indeed we're in a global war. It's a hybrid war. Spies are currently active. Sleeper cells are not active yet. They should be at some point, obviously, once this war kicks off, of course. It's like a 0 day. You don't want to use it until the final hour, until that proverbial day X. That's when those sleeper cells get turned on. But they also want to take attention away from this because, of course, people would panic if they knew that there were these spies in the country. But people would panic more so if they knew that there were nuclear weapons that were smuggled into the country, possibly, and that these drones that are surveilling the space, be it at airports or sensitive sites, are actually nuclear detection drones. This is a technology which has been around for a long time. It can detect using various sensors. It can detect nuclear radiation that's emitted from nuclear weapons. And if the public was told, I want you to just think about this for a second. If in New Jersey or New York, they said that, hey, we suspect that a nuclear weapon was smuggled in. And of course, remember, the United States has a lot of adversaries right now, arguably more than at any time in history. And it's cumulative, so all the wars that we fought over the last 50 years, a lot of people still want revenge. If the public was told, hey, there's a nuclear bomb possibly somewhere, but we're looking for it, don't worry, do you think this would trigger mass panic and people would hedge their bets and try to get out of the city? Absolutely, they would. This would upend the economy. This would undermine an otherwise still teetering on the brink of collapse, but still roaring, sky-high, overvalued economy that is on the brink of collapse. And all it would take was the right black swan. Not even a black swan, but the fear of a black swan event. The collective hysteria that there might be a black swan event to bring the whole thing to a halt and to crash the markets. So the government has a vested interest in not leveling with people that indeed these drones that we are seeing are what you're seeing right here. This is a nuclear detection drone. It fits all of the specs that many of the eyewitnesses are indicating these drones possess. The size of a small car. You can see, not quite the size of a small car, smaller than that, but of course when these things are operational and the props are spinning, it's likely going to look a lot bigger than it actually is. And of course it's impossible to determine the size of something unless you have something to relate it to. So unless you know how high up the drone is, and unless there's something in the backdrop to compare it to, most people are just going to assume that, yeah, it's bigger than a normal drone, but we just don't know how big it actually is. Now, this type of technology has been around probably for about 10 years. Nuclear detection technology, nuclear sniffer planes, this is nothing new. They utilize these frequently. It's a part of U.S. Stratcom, and they even have them in airports, I do believe. But to put them on drones, the reason why you would still need the beacons on, and the reason why the lights are still on these drones that people are seeing, and it would explain the size of them as well, is because, of course, you still have to comply with federal regulations. Because were something to happen, then they would have to explain themselves. Having the beacons on basically allows them to be in compliance with all of the bureaucratic red tape, and it also lends itself to plausible deniability in a retroactive sense, so that if something were to happen, if a nuclear weapon were to be detonated because it was smuggled in, and I was talking to a nuclear expert yesterday, and he believes that this is the most likely of scenarios, because there's a lot of fissionable material out there that has gone missing over the years, and it's only a matter of time before some possibly benign incident occurs, but it might not be. I'm not sure if you've ever seen the TV show Jericho, but the basis of that show, as well as many a Tom Clancy novel, is the smuggling of nuclear weapons. See, we all think that the nukes are going to come from the sky, and they very well could. But there's another scenario which has been missed on numerous analysts and speculators like myself for the past few years, and that is the smuggled nuke scenario. You can detect whether nukes are being smuggled in, but you have to have these drones operational, especially at the ports, especially at the airports, in order to be able to detect them. And I'm not even sure if it is something that always can be detected, because of course these things could be encased in shipping containers. It would be difficult to determine with 100% certainty, okay? So that is some of the explanations as to why this hypothesis perhaps passes the test. Because, number one, you want to minimize public panic. You want to make sure you have the lights on. You have the plausible deniability. If people could ask questions about it, you can make up a bunch of things, and you could, fan the flames of a speculation about UFOs to create white noise and discredit a lot of things. And eventually people will just get tired of the issue, right? Or people will be, anybody who starts to bring it up again, oh, you're one of those UFO guys who's been discredited, right? So those are some of the reasons as to why this could be a very plausible scenario. Also, minimizing public panic. This would, if this is true, that there is a threat, or that they're concerned that one of these nuclear weapons was smuggled in, it would crash the economy. It would lead to widespread panic. And that would not be good for the United States, and certainly wouldn't be good for the Trump administration. This explains sightings at the locations that we see these things at. And it would also explain why the government is not shooting these things down, because these are incredibly expensive machines. Maybe not in the millions of dollars, but I can tell you that this type of equipment, these type of sensors on this equipment, I presume would definitely be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So this likely is not the work of foreign adversaries who are working off the East Coast, because again, that would just simply be too risky. It would be a declaration of war. It'd be incredibly provocative. And of course, these drones, if captured, could be reverse engineered. So no nation would want to incriminate itself in such a way. But the thing that the first hypothesis I put forth does not explain was the size of these drones. No spy is going to leave the lights on and use drones that are this big. Drones that are going to be surveilling sensitive infrastructure in the United States by spies are not going to have the lights on. They're likely going to be incredibly small. They're probably not even going to do it at night. I mean, it might even be, well, I guess they would do it at night if the lights weren't on. But they would do it in such a way which was far more covert than what we're seeing here. So we've seen these things over 2 nuclear power plants. New Jersey's largest utility, PSE&G, has asked the FAA to halt air traffic over 2 nuclear power plants after drones were spotted over the sites. Drones were seen near the Salam nuclear power plant and Hope Creek generating station, raising safety concerns. Again, these could just be nuclear detecting drones doing their work that they're supposed to do. That the government doesn't want to draw attention to the fact that this technology exists indicates that perhaps they're worried that it would trigger some sort of public panic. Now, it's not only in the United States that this is happening. Of course, it's been happening at Ramstein Air Base, nuclear or U.S. base in Ramstein. It's also been happening in the UK. British intelligence are warning of a possible Russian drone strike on military facilities in the UK. Recent incidents involving drones spotted over RAF Lakenheath, I believe there are nuclear weapons there, are being viewed as coordinated operations. Similar incidents have been recorded in the United States where drones circled military bases in New Jersey, New York, and Texas. Former British intelligence officer Philip Ingram believes Russia's GRU is behind these actions, preparing for a new wave of reconnaissance missions and potential attacks. Now, the basis of the information that I'm giving to you today, this whole line of inquiry, was inspired by a post I read on X. And this is the post. And I've done some research thereafter to confirm that all the technology they're talking about in this, in fact, exists. That's this technology right here. And it fits the description of what people are seeing, okay? This is according to an account called Jersey Futures, who is now terminated or suspended or canceled their account. The account says as follows, and this could just be, internet speculation, so take it with a grain of salt. I guess it would add to the mystique if a person canceled their account afterwards, because then it would seem like, they were banned or something like that. But just listen to what they have to say. I'm one of the few groups of people who actually know what the drones are in New Jersey. This tweet will likely go into the void as I have no followers, but I'll share anyways. Please retweet for reach. What you're seeing are American-made HPGE nuclear detector drones, the drone I just showed you. They can detect the presence of gamma rays miles away. But what is a gamma ray? That's the stuff we attribute to radiation, electromagnetic waves that penetrate you and can cause cancer. HPG drones are built to inspect nuclear sites, but these ones aren't. In the late 2000s, the DoD needed a response to the threat of dirty bombs from ISIS coming into our ports in New York and New Jersey. They've been stocking up on these drones for a while. Some were deployed to Ukraine when Russia threatened to use dirty bombs. This is also true. They look weird because they're heavy and have giant cryo coolers mounted, as well as giant horn antennas to communicate on millimeter wave frequencies that can't be jammed. This is where I come in. The technology these drones use has few suppliers, both for millimeter wave equipment and the high purity germanium, which is true. I have the abstract to prove that. The abstract of the research paper that was the basis for the creation of these drones, that is. The same suppliers that are the backbone of the industry. So what are they doing? Collecting information on how the public will react, PSYOP, and testing their ability to sweep a port like NY for dirty bombs. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that part. I don't necessarily agree that the government would be testing the population in this way. The government simply doesn't have the budget or the mental bandwidth to think strategically like that. If they're doing this, it's because they actually think there's a dirty bomb that's coming. Jersey was chosen because we're the closest port city to New York, and New York would be too dense for reliable millimeter wave comms. But why is the DoD silent? Again, because in a scenario where we have a threat of a dirty bomb and the public doesn't know yet, the DoD needs to know how the public would react if these drones were deployed to sweep a city. Now, this would also explain why some accounts suggest that these drones are flying off into the ocean after they've run their sortie or whatever it is. Because you would not want all the three-letter agencies to know about this. Maybe the CIA, maybe the military, maybe Stratcom, maybe Homeland Security, but you wouldn't necessarily want local law enforcement to know what was going on, because then, of course, the word would get out. So it would explain why these drones are retreating to some ship or some vessel, and it could very well be a military submersible in the Atlantic Ocean that belongs to the United States, obviously. What most don't realize is that Ukraine is the reason why we're here. That was the first time we deployed them in a combat zone, but make no mistake, they're for protecting the homeland, as the DoD has bought hundreds of thousands to act as swarms capable of sweeping a city. Interesting. I don't know if that part is true, but we know the technology exists. And like I'm saying, we have to infer because we don't have all the information. Okay, so that explanation appears to check most of the boxes. It explains the Pentagon's behavior. It explains the National Security Advisor, John Kirby's behavior with respect to this, right? It explains a lot of things. This is the abstract I was referencing. Emergency Unmanned Airborne Spectrometric HPGE Monitoring Systems, okay? Now, many problems could be solved by unmanned airborne monitoring systems, but the current ones are mostly based on non-spectrometric detectors carried by drones with low bearing, short range, and flight time. Therefore, spectrometric monitoring system based on high purity germanium detector carried by powerful unmanned helicopters has also been deployed. So they're saying that they need a bigger platform for this. So it could very well be that what we're seeing is in fact a bigger version of that drone that I just showed you the picture of. All right. So I don't know if I really want to get into how this works. Essentially, a relay drone hovers above, converting radio waves from a vehicle-based generator to power the drones. A neutron drone irradiates a targeted area with neutron. Sensor drones scan for gamma rays or particle signatures of explosives and send alerts if detected. I believe they have this technology in airports as well. Incredibly interesting stuff. Drones equipped with gamma ray, neutron, and alpha particle detectors can identify the unique radiation signatures emitted by nuclear materials such as uranium and plutonium. These drones use sensors similar to those employed by manned systems, but miniaturized for UAV platforms. I mean, makes perfect sense. They don't need drones to survey for anything else but that. Unless they're doing a manhunt and they need, thermal imaging drones. But that's the only reason why you would need. They're looking for something. They're trying to detect something, and I think that thing is a nuclear weapon. You remember the briefcase bomb scare? That was back when I was in high school. That was like 20, 30 years ago, after the fall of the Soviet Union. Quite a ways after the fall of the Soviet Union. So anyways, guys, this is something we should pay attention to. Try not to get caught up in all the scuttlebutt with respect to this. Looks like I'm running out of time today, and this also maps on perfectly as to why the government contacted me for 220,000 doses of nuclear medication. Something is not right. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.